Another episode of Beyond the Shadows. I told you all I don't like sets, I don't like studios. So here we are in Wamego, Kansas. Kansas is a very haunted place. This has got to be the corner apartment of Spook Central. There is so many hauntings here, it's incredible. And we're going to be taking you to a few of them while we're here this time. Also going to be introducing you to some friends of mine from KPRS, it's Kansas Paranormal Research Society. I met these folks several years ago. We were doing a lecture at a paranormal conference in Leavenworth. Turns out our styles are very similar. We got to be friends. They called me in on an investigation in Old Town Abilene, and we had some pretty exciting moments there. I called them and had them help me at Herman at the Gasconade County Courthouse, and in August, we're going to be taking you, with KPRS and me, into the prison in Jefferson City. We're going to have a lot of fun. Stick with me. Okay, we're still in the basement of the Columbia Theater, and with me is Brenda Mason, the founder of the Kansas Paranormal Research Society, the top ghost hunting group in Kansas. The people that I've chose to work with a lot down here. So, Brenda.
Hey Dan, how you doing?
I've talked a little bit about Abilene.
Yes.
And some of the stuff you've done. But when did you get into the paranormal like this?
You know, I think my whole life, really. I had a brother that died before I was born. And so I played with him, but you know, your parents are saying, oh, you've got an imaginary friend. Well, I know it was my brother. And so my whole life, really. And I was always interested in it. And then, you know, the good old Ghost Hunters show came out, and of course, you got to watch that. You know, you got to watch that and that kind of got me going. And I'm like, you know, there's so much more out there. There's just more out there. I need to know what's out there. And so in 2008, I found some people and kind of hooked up with them, and they were not they didn't do much. So I think I did one investigation in a year, and I'm like, this is not what I'm wanting to do.
I bet sometimes, though, you miss those days, don't you?
Yeah, I do, actually. And so in 2009, my oldest son, Brandon, and I, and my youngest son, Jared, we're at home, I'm working, and I'm like, you know, I can do this. I can do this. I can start learning, I can research, I can do this. And so that's kind of what we did. Jared, we picked a name. Jared designed a logo, and I started calling people I knew that were interested, and it kind of went from there with a few friends, and then now it's progressed. Really base our investigating on research and history, evidence. We don't do the whole psychic thing anymore. We did that for a while, and it just,
it had its good time.
It worked for a while, but we want hardcore evidence.
Okay.
I want to know what happens after I die.
Okay. And what have you come up with? These folks would like to know too.
What I've come with is another round. Recently actually got some really amazing evidence down in Manhattan of an elderly man who was having some issues. We felt it was his wife who had passed away, and we set cameras up. One of my investigators, Matt, set cameras up and ran them all night long. Nobody was there but him, and we got multiple times that the blankets were being pulled up. One time his arm was lifted up and dropped, and he's sound asleep. And this is our most astounding evidence we've ever gotten. And we also got EVPs. The woman was from Austria, and we have her speaking in her native language.
In German dialect.
No, not dialect, but her in German. She was speaking Austrian, and their oldest son actually translated it for us.
Okay.
And
what was it?
She was saying that she was sad.
Wow.
And I brought tears to my eyes when we showed the family the evidence. It really wonderful family, but that was our, I know now, I don't care what anybody tells me, I know now there is more than just what's here.
Okay.
And there's not just heaven, hell, like we're taught in church. I feel like there's multiple levels of realms that we go through after we pass away.
Okay.
And that spirits can come and, you know, once you're passed away, you can come and go as you please. And you're not going to go and stay in one spot until you're happy. It seems they tend to watch out for family members. I'm not saying that everything's always good. You know, we have had to do some blessings. We had one possession that we did take care of in Topeka. And that was probably our scariest thing ever.
Can you give us kind of an overview of that one?
Yeah, it was a young couple, and they weren't engaged yet, and she had a son from her previous marriage, and her fiance had come into the house, and it was the end of winter, and he was taking all the plastic down off the windows, you know, that they had put up. It's an older home. It's in East Topeka. He was taking that down, and he said something it was like he said something entered him. And he fell on the floor. He started foaming at the mouth. The little boy was home with him. The fiance, she was at work. And I try not to say their names because we try to keep clients very confidential. And he then began to, he sat on his knees, and you know sectionals, how they're in an L? They have one of those. He sat on his knees, and he literally grabbed the cushions, and he picked the entire sectional up into the air. The son, you know, her son, he's 10.
Okay.
He was very well old enough to say, this is what I saw. And they had things happen in the home. They had seen a man. They had their back door opened. Things moved. You know, various things. Electronics turning on. So things had been going on with her while she was just there with her son. And then when her fiance moved in, things escalated.
Okay.
So whatever was there did not, for some reason, want him there. We think it was a very possessive entity of her. And
do you think it was a human spirit?
you know what, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think there is a human spirit there, but I think what happened to him was not a human spirit. A human spirit's not going to do that.
And how long did you deal with this?
For a couple of months.
Okay.
We had to go through things. Devin Tucking and I went over to meet with them. She called me very distraught, and I said, okay, we can come over tonight as soon as we get off work. We went to their house. We sat down in the living room, and because he was fine as long as he was away from the house. But as soon as he came back in the house, things started happening to him.
So we were kind of still in the oppression stage.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we came in, and he came in, and we could see him, his eyes, kind of glazing. At one point, she said that his eyes turned black. And I'm watching him very closely. And he just was in a zone. He was like not there.
Okay.
And so she's telling us what things had been going on. Devin and I are sitting side by side on that sofa that he had picked up. We could see down the hallway, and we could see dark shadows just darting up and down the hallway. And you've only heard me get scared one time, Dan.
We'll hit
and
that
that was
story
in
before
Abilene.
it's
That's
over.
another
Yeah.
story. But I was petrified. And so was Devin. She doesn't startle easily. She works in emergency management. She's very calm, cool, and collected. And we told the family, we said, get your belongings. Do you have a place to go? They said, yeah, we can go to my parents. She could go to her parents' home. And so we said, get enough stuff for a few days. Let's go. We got our pastor from Leavenworth to come over, Dave Mundy, and he actually studied demonology in seminary. Yes, and so he's our expert demonologist. We needed to investigate somewhat to try and figure out what's there, see if we could get any evidence, see if we could get anything to happen. And we heard growling. We captured it on audio. we heard knocking in the walls,
What kind of knocking was it?
just like,
Upon request or
no,
pounding?
just, it was bang. It was like, there was a closet in this one room, but then there was the closet in the master bedroom, and it was like it was in between those two closets.
Okay.
It was very bizarre. I'm an empath. My gut feeling was telling me, just get the heck out of there.
Okay.
And Devin wouldn't come in. She kept the couple outside with them. She stayed out with them. Monday, the pastor crawled into this closet,
Okay.
all the way to the back of it, and he comes out with this giant sword, and then the big axe-like thing, like to chop heads off.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what they're called.
Battle axe to me.
Yeah, and they were very elaborate, expensive weapons, skulls carved into them, into the silver, and
Wow.
the handles unscrewed and were hollow so that you could put like scrolls in there, because that was one of the things our pastor said is a lot of people that practice demonology, that practice demon
Satanism
worship,
or-
Satanism, will put their scrolls in. Okay, so he took it apart, checked it, and said that those were normally used in Satan worship. So we brought her in, and her name's Bobby. We brought Bobby in. We kind of grilled her a little bit about her former boyfriend who had lived there. And she says, well, he did ghost hunting like you guys do. And I'm like, I don't think so.
Uh-huh.
I said, what did he do? And she goes, well, he would sit on these websites, and this is what he would look up, and he and two friends would go out to a cemetery, and he would take those things, and we're like, oh, whoa, they're doing Satan worship.
Right.
They're doing sacrifices worship, Satan worship, they're summoning. And we knew then those two things needed to be removed from that house.
Okay.
And whatever had come in there, the former boyfriend had actually, we think, cast a spell onto the fiance. And so our pastor took it, put them in his car, and he said, I'll dispose of these, and nobody's gonna know where I get rid of them at.
Okay.
And he tells us as he's driving down the highway going back to Leavenworth, they literally started jumping and shaking in the back of his car.
Whew.
He pulled over, and he thought, oh, it's just the highway.
Yeah.
So he's, goes again, not moving, and then all of a sudden they just start jumping and vibrating, and he's like, that's it. He instructed the family, some verses to read out of Psalms, and burn sweetgrass and every night and say prayers, and they've done it faithfully for 2 years. They called me, it was a couple of months after we had been there, and I'm an ordained clergy, and they called and asked me to marry him on the 4th of July.
Wow.
And
Cool.
that was probably the coolest thing ever to do for some client, a client. We've stayed in contact with them, so everything's great.
Well, away from the evil.
Yes.
What happened in Abilene? Let's tell that story.
Okay.
It's one of my favorites.
Well, we've been to Abilene multiple times. You
Now,
called.
are you still doing
tours?
tours there?
No,
and
no, we don't.
Nothing?
No, we don't do tours there. We haven't been in a long time. Everybody wants to go back. We've actually had people call us wanting to know when we're coming back to Old Abilene Town. So that's in the works. So
Good.
I'll give you a call. And
yeah, I got a meeting with somebody there.
yeah, so you were working on your latest book that had come out, or getting ready to work on. You were working on your newest book, and you needed some stuff, and
Needed cowboys.
I'm like,
yeah.
come on, this is the place, And we had been there previously, I think 2 or 3 times. We've been there quite a bit. Very active, very, very, very active. And we found out about it from the reenactors that work there, and because they'll sleep there at night. So, and we had an experience in the Blue Building, as we call it, the time before, and that was the first thing you said. You said, Brenda, take me to the Blue Building, I want to see what happened. So myself and you and a few other people, my son and a couple others, we went into the Blue Building, crawled through the hole in the side of the wall, crawled over the hole in the floor, and went back into the room where something had happened, And as I'm telling you the story about this big black shadow figure rushing us, this big black shadow figure came through the door, darted across the room, and knocked over a stack of wood. I screamed bloody murder. So loud, the police ended up coming later.
Yes, they did.
And people that were down at the barn, which was, I don't know how far it is
Yeah,
to the
50
barn.
yards or more.
It's quite a ways. They're on the radio. Everybody okay? Who screamed? And I was just like, I want out of here. But I saw it, and it knocked that stack of wood over. I don't care what anybody tells me. You know,
it did. But when we held our ground, it ran
and
away.
you were like, oh, that's it, scare people, and you went into cop mode. That's what got me. You went into cop mode, and you confronted it, and you're like, oh, you're trying to be big and bad and scare people and all that. And it did. It just went, it was like gone.
It was so
We've never been disappointed. We had a team member and I had gone in the hotel.
Yeah.
We had gone upstairs into the hotel, and her and I saw a figure in that room, and she's talking to us, saying, okay, we're not going to hurt you or anything, and all of a sudden, all these lights, it was like strobe lights, and I've never experienced it. I can't explain it. I don't have an explanation for it. I don't know what would have caused it, but it was just all these lights just started flashing in that room, only in that room.
Okay.
And then we saw this black figure charge us, and she screamed, which then in turn made me scream, and we ran out the door of that bedroom to the stairs, and just as we got to the top of the stairs, that door slammed. And the crazy thing about that is, that door sticks, and it will only close halfway.
Now, was that before or after I was there?
That was the next time we went,
Next
after
time.
you had been there.
Because the lady I talked to was very sweet, very
Yes.
kind.
Well, there's two different women in there.
Okay.
Alma is the sweet lady, and then we think Margaret. We've gotten the name Margaret. We think
Okay.
she's the not happy lady that is up there, and she's the one that charged us and slammed that door. And we went back and we're like messing with that door, and we're like, this door won't even close. How did this? There was some reenactors, because they'll follow us around when we're there, and tell us stories. And they were actually outside, and they heard her scream, and they looked up, and they said they saw a light bulb come out of that window.
Wow.
At that same time.
We know now you've dealt with the good stuff, the fun stuff, the evil. What if somebody needs help? How do they contact you for
If
help?
somebody needs help, we have a website, and it is www.KsParanormalResearchSociety.com,
Okay.
and they can send an email, and a case manager will then contact them and do an interview. And it's a lengthy interview, so they need to put about an hour and a half aside
Okay.
for that phone call. Some people do call me. I do still get some phone calls. I'm trying to cut down on the calls and go more emails, but my number is 785-633-3122, and we will take phone calls. I don't always answer them right away. We normally ask to give us 72 business hours
Okay.
to get back to you. We have a pretty heavy caseload most of the time, as you know. After we do a case management interview, then I discuss it with the case manager, and we actually decide whether we're gonna take the case, whether we're going to refer it to somebody else, maybe closer to their area.
Okay.
We get calls. Right now, Devin and I are working a UFO abduction case in New York. So
Wow.
I get calls from everywhere. Sometimes you just get a lot of people that watch a whole lot of those TV shows,
Yeah.
and they think because their cabinet squeaked, or or whatever, or their dog barked at a shadow, that their house is haunted. But we do check everything out. We do a lot of historical background, and we do background checks on the clients.
Do you mostly stay in Kansas, or have you been stretching out?
We've
into
been
Missouri?
stretching out Missouri, Kansas, and Kansas both.
Oklahoma?
We have not, we've gotten a lot of calls from Oklahoma. We've
Okay.
been fortunate enough to find other teams to be able to refer those people to in Oklahoma, because we all work full-time jobs.
Sure.
And it's very hard, you know, to go to those. We've gotten calls from Nebraska, Iowa, you know, pretty much everywhere.
Good.
And
Means you're a good reputation is out.
yeah, and,
so.
and a lot of Kansas City, a lot of people in Kansas City call us.
Okay.
And, so we, you know, our theory is if it's within a 2.5, 3 hour drive, we're gonna go.
Try to take it. All right.
We're gonna go. If it's further than that, you know, we'll figure something out. Some people we're able just to help, over the phone.
Right.
And, you know, tell them things that they can do, or maybe lifestyle changes they need to make, or, you know, and, you know, even a good cleaning of your house, and, you know, open the windows and do a smudging, and we teach people how to smudge correctly and
Okay.
do their own blessing if we can't get there to do it. You know, because sometimes that just keeps negative energy around. It may not necessarily be a ghost, it might just be negative energy. And, you know, there is a lot of that around, and so.
As you can
that's it.
see, the woman knows what she's talking about. Brenda Mason, Kansas Paranormal Research Society. You're going to see her again when we hit the prison in Jefferson City.
Can't wait for that.
Yeah, it's going to be
That's
a blast.
gonna be awesome.
All right, thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Dan.